In this demonstration, we're now going to look at creating a brand new Azure Active Directory tenant from the Azure portal. So let's head over there to begin. And in the Azure portal, the first thing to note is on the top right, when you log into Azure, you're logging in with your account, and you can see it's associated with AZ Exam. If I click this other icon, Directory plus Subscription, and I go to the bottom here, I can see all the directories that I have access to with that account. So in my case, this account originally was only associated with this one directory, the default directory, ncollier.live.onmicrosoft.com. If you're creating a brand new account, you'll see something similar based on your name that you've keyed in. And I've gone ahead and created this additional AD tenant AZ exam, which is what I use for a lot of the demos now going forward, as well as other domains that you may have seen in previous demos. But if I go ahead and go over to Azure Active Directory on the left-hand side, and if you don't have it in your favorites bar, the other way you can access it is by clicking All Services and then searching for Azure Active Directory. But in a moment, it'll pop up with our Azure Active Directory menu blade. Okay, and once that's up, you can see again azexamdemo.onmicrosoft.com, the domain azexam, and I'm currently using the free tier of Azure Active Directory. And you will notice for some services that you try to do, if you're playing around with them, there's also the concept of these Azure AD Premium P1 or P2 licenses, and you can grab a free trial if you're experimenting with things in there. But for right now, if we want to create a new directory, what I need to do is on the right-hand side, scroll down, and you'll see an area, create a directory. If we click that, that allows us to give a new organization name. So perhaps I'm going to call this AZ Exam Test, just to distinguish it differently from the one I already have. And I'm going to call it AZ Exam Test.onmicrosoft.com. And that is available. Now, those are globally unique. So if you try to do something that somebody else already has, it's not going to let you do that. It does need to be completely unique on the onmicrosoft.com domain. And then choose the country that we will create it in. And then go ahead and click Create. And that will take about a minute to get that directory created. So we will fast forward here while that completes. Okay, and after a while, that notification pops up and the directory is created. Now what I need to do, if I click the directories and subscriptions filter and scroll down, might have to just refresh it if it's not showing correctly. So just refresh your portal. And then click that again. And you can see we now have AZ Exam, which is the current one that I'm in, and this new one, AZ Exam Test. Now, something important to bear in mind, if I click AZ Exam Test, it's now going to switch over to that AD tenant. I'll need to log in with my account. And then if I go in here and go down to subscriptions, which I might need to add back, yep, so go back to all services and just add subscriptions back to your favorites, and click subscriptions. And what you'll notice straight away is I don't have any subscription yet, because that original subscription I've got is only associated with that other Azure AD domain. Now, that's not to say I can't give, additional subscriptions to additional domains. I can certainly have lots of domains with lots of subscriptions, but the subscription has one unique domain that it is associated with. If I want to give somebody access to that subscription from the other domain, they could be a user in this domain. I would need to trust them and grant them access to the other subscription, but I can't reassociate that subscription with this domain. So something, again, just keep in mind of and really, hit home on is subscription is a one-to-one mapping with that Azure AD tenant specifically. The other things to just keep in mind, if we go back to Azure Active Directory, you will see users and groups, which we're going to cover in the next demonstration, but there is a role, an administrator, that is created already for you. If we go down to Global Administrator, this user is created automatically, and this is, my user account that is the global administrator for that specific domain. That's essentially, the ultimate rights for that domain, and you can, give out additional global admin rights to other people as needed, but that's created for you automatically, which makes sense. The first person to create the Azure AD tenant needs to be the global administrator. Think of that as just as important as if you have legacy Active Directory. That was kind of your AD administrator. You had very few people you'd give those rights to because they need to be kept very, very secure. But with that, that concludes this demonstration. If you need to head back, simply click the directory and subscription again, go back to your other domain if you've got one, and then if you want to delete that other domain, just go back there and delete it directly from Azure AD as well. But that's how you go about creating your new Azure AD tenant.